The Creatives with AI podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creatives with AI podcast. I'm your host, David. And on today's show, we have Richard Norton and Derek Ahmedzai from the digital agency, The Peeps. The Peeps is it's an agency that helps you wow your audience using innovative marketing with creative AI, AR, Web3, and NFTs. The reason I wanted to have Norts and Derek on the show is because I saw Norts do a presentation a few weeks ago at an AI event, and some of the stuff that the Peeps are doing with AI and AR is really, really interesting, and I thought people would be interested to hear about it. So here we go.
The Creatives with AI podcast, the spiritual home of creatives curious about AI and its role in their future.
Norts, Derek, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. Thanks very much. Pleasure.
How are you guys? For those of the people listening later, this is 3 days before Christmas or something. So I think everybody's focused on just trying to finish up the year and get their Christmas shopping done.
Still haven't finished that yet.
Have you started?
No.
Fair enough.
It's beautiful. It's snow. We've got like 12 inches of snow outside. There's reindeer walking past the house. It's very beautiful. So we can paint pictures, can't we, on a podcast?
We can.
That's the point. Paint pictures.
Well, this is exactly what I talked about on the podcast that came out this week. Is do we want AI to be a mirror of society and the data that's actually out there, or do we want it to present a sort of fictitious version of things to try and nudge us into different behaviors? And so we can paint a picture of whatever we want.
It's very deep opening there, David. Very deep opening, very existential start.
I feel quite reflective. Yeah, I feel quite reflective lately. It might be good just to start off if you guys would just quickly introduce yourselves, and then somebody give an introduction a little bit to the Peeps and the kind of stuff that you've been doing, I think, because I think a lot of people listening would find it really interesting how you guys are using AI and AR and Web3 and some of the other technology in actual business every day, and then we can start to expand from there.
Well, we got the tyranny, haven't we, David? The tyranny of two of us. Who goes first? Well, we have to set up some sort of plan. I reckon you should go first, Derek. You should plough in. Set yourself up.
All right, bios and the Peeps, something like that. So yeah, there's the two of us. I'm the kind of technical side. Norts is the creative side. My background is web development since like the year 2000. So always creativity, using tools like Flash and making fancy websites. So I've always been interested in using technology in interesting ways to create exciting experiences. And so that goes across web, that goes across, I had an interest in Twitter bots for a time when they were a thing, and then getting into creative AI early on just as a kind of fun outlet. And then that's when I kind of, met Norts. Well, not met Norts, but we go back further. But that's when we started working together.
It's very succinct, yes.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Norts, co-founder of The Peeps. My background is creative writing, advertising, marketing. Basically, I started as a musician, a failed musician. Well, I was actually a musician. Then I became a failed musician because I got to a certain age and I was neither, I got played on radio once a couple of times, but neither famous nor dead. And so at a certain age, you have to quit music, which I did, and found myself in advertising, in ad writing. So I kind of spent many years doing that. And like you do, if you stay around long enough that you sort of learn your craft a bit, just purely by being around, you get kind of promoted, don't you? You just go up the ranks unless you're abysmal. Because if you're abysmal, you get fired, don't you? Well, you get fired as well in advertising. That's part of the fun of it. But yeah, so that was that. So I got to a certain point, and then I'd met Derek working on basically social media, trying to hack social media maybe 10, 12 years ago. And because he was like Mr. Full Stack Dick, we'd said, there's a guy called Derek, you should get him in. And he worked on some projects with me as a freelancer then. So he was in my universe back then. And then the kind of AI thing started 2016. So we can come to talk about later how that happened. But essentially, our goal, we've been in the space of advertising and marketing and communications, but also kind of art and experiential stuff since about since 2018. The basis being that we kind of we aim to help people. It isn't really about AI. It's just about advertisers and marketeers should think about how they differentiate themselves with their audience. That's kind of really important. Do things that are different to everybody else. Zig while others zag, as somebody says, not be that 90% which is crap, be that 10%. And we always thought, well, you do that by thinking about advertising that's creative, that stimulates emotions, because all advertising ultimately is about changing people's behaviours, and you do that by putting them in an emotional state of whatever emotion it is. That's all well and good. So you can craft that old school ways by like script writing and music and all those kind of things that go into make ads and marketing campaigns, etc., etc. But we also kind of hit upon this idea, well, you can use AI to do that, can't you, in lots of ways. It could be for efficiency and effectiveness. So we kind of kick-started that 6 years ago now. Yeah, we've got to this point now, and that's been an interesting journey, because 6 years ago, what we could do for marketeers back then is very different to what we can do now.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Purely on
And people didn't get it,
evolution.
did they?
Yeah.
People thought it was kind of a crazy move.
Well, it probably was a crazy move back then, don't you think? I mean,
It was a crazy move. It was
that was like
idiotic.
bleeding edge stuff back then.
Yeah, it was, and it was quite funny because I didn't mind it really. The first 6 months we set up, didn't have any work. We did lots of stuff to kind of tell the world what this kind of new technology was. But back then, when it's like messing around with Google collabs or say Markov chains, and look at me, Derek, getting all technical and stuff like that, and the end results of what you created were always a bit, and if it was, whether it was text or it was visual, you certainly weren't animating. And if you wanted to do a deep fake, it would take you like about 3 weeks. But back then, and all the results you'd show people what you do were quite shonky and janky. And
underwhelming.
And it was weird, wasn't it? It's AI weirdness. That's what it used to be called, wasn't it? Oh my God,
Right.
look at that. AI's made a 7-legged cat. And people but weirdly, we started getting work, and it's the kind of interesting thing about people. I don't like to use the word brave, because it's a funny word to use in advertising. Oh, brave marketing, like brave's putting out a fire, isn't it? Whatever, writing a daring copy line is just going a bit above and beyond. But we found people who wanted to stand out, like I said, differentiated, kind of moved into space, primarily because nobody was doing anything with creative AI back then. So it was that classic trick of like, I'm going to be the first to do that. And we sort of found ourselves doing stuff where people would ask us to do it because no one had done it with AI. So it was like, oh, the first this, oh, the first that, oh, the... And we found this weird world where we kept pivoting. No, not pivoting, we were AI, but at one point people got really into us making cocktails for their events. So we became cocktail creators.
Okay.
Then we became cake makers for a while because it was very easy to create recipes with food, like take a neural network take a whole bunch of data about, I don't know, curries or cupcakes or cocktails. It's a nice lot of C's, isn't it? Just in there, nice little alliteration, and you could do stuff with that, and you get really weird, interesting outputs. Then
So did you have AI make original recipes?
Yeah, we did, and then we got real bakers to actually create the cakes or.
Nice.
Get the cocktails made.
And what was your success rate in that?
In terms of the fact that, we would always be very keen on going for mega outputs.
Right.
Because I think that even today, people don't get, and you hear it. We heard it when I was with you, Dave, in Tunbridge Wells.
Yeah.
At that time, we'll always have Tunbridge Wells. You get that thing. You get that thing where people just assume that the output is just an AI thing, and that's it. The AI's made this. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll take it. And it's never been that at any point in our existence. There's always it's a human AI or human machine learning collaboration.
Yeah.
So when we were making things like, if you put in a data set of potential cupcake combinations, it's going to come out with an awful lot of shit, frankly.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter, and the same with cocktail names, I don't know, cocktail names can be staggeringly high proportion of good cocktail names. But that's when
naming
we
is to be good at,
Yeah, name is brilliant. And that's how we kind of got, and then like randomly, for example, we did that, and somewhere along the line of communications, Deloitte heard about us. Suddenly we were making cocktails for Deloitte events, and it was like,
wow.
Can't they? But the key to it is the fact that we would always get an expert, like an expert baker, an expert cocktail maker, or a mixologist, whatever. Yeah, bartender, etc., to kind of work with us to say that works well. No, that's not going to work. And what was kind of interesting, even back then, the learning for them, where you thought, there is something about AI that can add value, was the fact that they would always find combinations that they would never think of themselves.
Right.
Because they seem just too like, oh, that plus that, I'd never thought about that, but the acidity of that compared with the whatever quality of that works together well. And I suppose the culmination, the sort of peak zenith of our sort of combining for food, drink, etc., recipes, flavors, etc., culminate probably when we devised the world's first AI gin.
Okay.
Ooh. And that was interesting because that was something we kind of identified ourselves in, like, can you believe all these people come to us for firsts and no one's ever come to us and said, because we'd made a lot of cocktails, no one's ever come to us and said, oh, the world's first AI gin, and it just didn't exist. And so we kind of hawked it around a few people. I won't say who we hawked it to, who kind of declined it. It's like the Beatles Decca thing, you know. They had the chance, didn't they, Decca, to sign the Beatles? Well, someone had the chance to do the AI gin before the people who did it, and they declined it. But yeah, so we ended up working with a small distiller in Bristol to make the world's first AI gin, and we don't have to go into it. It's an interesting story. But what was interesting about the AI gin culmination, the creation of it, it wasn't so much that you were using machine learning to create the thing. The core of the idea was giving someone who was a small distiller, independent distiller, who had interest in technology, to punch well above their weight in the kind of like their marketing. So ultimately, the culmination of it was they got coverage across the world for very little money because the thing went viral. Because guess what? No one had made an AI gin. Yeah. And back then, that's a story, isn't it? Oh, content.
What was really interesting about when I saw you present as well is that a lot of people, I think, when they talk about AI, even these days, it's all theoretical and nobody actually uses it. Whereas you just jumped in and dived in, 5, 6, 7 years ago and went, no, we're just going to try this thing and we're going to see what we can actually make using it. And I love that. I think that's amazing. And, it wasn't perfect, but people aren't perfect. Do you know what I mean? Bakers, when they're trying to come up with a new recipe, they don't get it right every time. Chefs don't get it right every time. They have to make it. You watch MasterChef and some of those, the chefs talk about, we've worked on this dish for 2 years before we put it out. So in my mind, it's no different, but it's really, really interesting to hear, to hear how you've actually used it to actually make things. I know I would have never thought of that either, but I don't particularly present myself as being massively creative.
Yeah, when we started, there were other people doing kind of similar things like pizza toppings or dress designs. Yeah. But often people would use the AI up to the step of having a text or a visual, and then present that, and then go no further. Yeah. But we like to actually
make it,
put that into the real world, like get the cake made, get the cocktail made. And that's really where the story is. We did a poem that was for Poetry Day a long time ago. We trained it on Sylvia Plath's poetry and got some text output. But then the really kind of interesting step was we got a robot handwriting tool to actually write it. It was trained on her handwriting. And then somebody spoke, actually gave a reading. And that was the fun part.
Yeah, that's cool. I used to be highly and deeply involved in the startup sort of industry, because it really is its own industry here in the UK for a long time when I had my own startup. And one of the companies that we ran across was literally a startup, and they would handwrite cards for you. But their goal was to not have, they physically had a team of people who would handwrite a card for you. So you could say, I want a handwritten card to go to wherever. And a physical person would actually write the card.
A scribe.
But they were like, we want to get to the point that we can just get a machine to do it. But they hadn't even worked that out yet. This was only, that was a while back now. I guess that was 2014, something back then. So, but now we've all seen the sort of TikTok videos or the Insta reel of the machine that's actually doing the handwriting of the kid's homework. So the kid basically goes to ChatGPT, asks it to write a paper, and then it actually does the handwriting for you. So it looks like he's written it in his notebook.
The teacher will never know.
Until it's time for a test.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about the Plath poem, comparing it with today, obviously with large language models, you can pretty much, if you wanted to, for want of a better term, I don't want to say impersonate, take the aspects, the kind of the essence of a poet. I mean, do it in seconds now. Name any poet, and you could create something that's like them. It's quite funny because back then we very deliberately chose Sylvia Plath on the basis that Sylvia Plath's poetry is quite dense and esoteric, and to be honest, a bit like what's his face? Who wrote the? It doesn't matter. Start that bit again. The fact of the matter was, what's his name? I'm going to say it now. Who wrote Cats? But not Cats. It's the I'm having a brain fade. Not Auden. Not W.H. Auden.
Oh, no, I can't remember either.
He's a man. This is never going to be in the cut. I hope this isn't the final cut. It's a disaster.
Nah, we'll leave it in. It's fine. It's all natural.
It's all natural. No, I hope not. God. Anyway,
I'll look it up while you're talking. So you keep talking.
Yeah, you do that. You do that. Was he the thing that's the greatest poem of the 20th century, all about
Eliot?
Yeah, T.S. Eliot. There it is.
T.S. Eliot. There we go.
Bloody Derek always comes through, doesn't he? Always
Old
comes through.
Possum's Book of Practical Cats.
Yeah, well, Cats is rubbish, but the thing, I think, beautiful. But the point of the matter is, I love Sylvia Plath's poems, right? I've always loved it, but to be honest, if you sit and think about what does it actually mean, I haven't got a clue. So, taking her body of work back then and then creating new poetry with it is quite interesting, because it became, again, a human task to kind of the outputs to decide. Because you could just take a block of the text and go, that's the poem. But we didn't do it like that. We did it as a sort of editing role to say, we've got like 10,000 lines of poetry here. Is that a beautiful line that sits with that beautiful line that sits with that beautiful line? And it was a very manual task as a human with the output. Whereas now, I mean, you could still do that editing thing. It's just amazing that you just tap it, well, write a poem like Sylvia Plath, blah, 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 blah. Boom, you got one come out. You might think, I'll tweak this, I'll tweak that. But I suppose the thing is that I want to convey is this fact that I do think there is a perception in people that when you get AI involved, AI runs it, or AI is the decision maker, but it's never the case. There's always a human who's either in the creative role, curating it, editing it, thinking about it, starting it, finishing it, and that's kind of
these are tools, aren't they? So you direct them.
Yeah, they are still tools, and I think what people worry about is at what point do they start to do stuff on their own, and I do think we're quite a ways away from that on anything particularly creative. I think solving minor technical problems or technical problems, I think might be the first things that AI will put their minds to, but who knows? I have no idea what they might do. What do you think? So since you've been a practitioner using AI, and you guys have been doing it for a long time, what do you see as the most useful part of AI at the minute, and where do you think that's going to go in the next couple of years? Like, where do you see the biggest gains we can make by using AI?
Well, I think for us, it's definitely the creative tools. And when you look at things like ChatGPT or large language models, it's often just to get you off that blank page. So the biggest thing that it gives you is a kind of creative jump off. And the same with video and image tools. Yeah. Would you say that's right, Norts?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure many people talk of large language models. Personally, and even this year, we've seen it in the work that we've been commissioned to do, the acceleration of the visual creative tools, and by that, the kind of mid-journeys, even DALL-E 3s, but then going into the runways where you can animate, is the way I would have said that at the start of the year, when people come to us, what would you use that for? You might say, well, think about creating if you're presenting in advertising, you're doing a pitch and you want to create a mood piece, you might use this to create the set it up, show people images. Because one of the great things in advertising and marketing you notice is that the thing about they go, we're going to have to show them something. People just can't visualize it if they don't see it. Yeah. So you've got that ability, but what's kind of happened again with the onset and the evolution of these tools is that you can now get to the point with human craft and editing, you can create pretty good content, not that can be for like a presentation, but it's got to the point now where you can put it in the public domain. And again, it's just the ability now, and like there was the Midjourney 6 release yesterday, and you can just see the quality and those kind of upscaling tools as well. There's been 2 or 3 projects that we have been tasked to do this year, and the way we've approached them on having that brief is different now to how it would have been at the start of the year, and it's just making for a much more elegant. I'm excited about that because I don't, we're at the foothills there of that kind of technology.
Yeah, on the creative point, I have a question. I'm going to tie it into something that you said earlier, where, and it about being daring, and it made me think of Elon Musk. And just bear with me for a second, but I don't think that any AI would have ever come up with Elon Musk telling his largest advertisers to fuck off.
That was unexpected.
In a live interview situation, and it was different. It was maybe if you know Elon Musk, it probably wasn't that unexpected. I think he probably has said that for a long time in private. And,
are you allowed to say on your podcast that he was probably on drugs at the time?
He may have been,
or at least a lot of people on Twitter were saying that.
He may have, maybe, but he doesn't care. Right? That's the thing. And the whole point of it is that he's not going to be beholden to his advertisers no matter what. If somebody says, well, we're going to take our money away, he's like, well, fine, take it. I don't care. Right? So I get the point. Maybe, but would I be brave enough to do that in my own business? Probably not. And most other businesses don't have enough money. Like, he has the ultimate FU money, right? Like, he can do literally whatever he wants, anytime he wants. And he can just do it. It doesn't matter. So, he had the ability to do that, but that was something different and unexpected. And so when you were going back and talking about being brave and doing some of that, some of the things that aren't expected and some of the things that a traditional business wouldn't, because that's all it is everybody gets so worried. They're like, oh my God, what if people don't like it? And what if our, if you're a newspaper or you're a company and you go, well, what if our customers don't like it and they're going to take their money away? And it's because you're all tied up in this, you've got shares and investors and you have all these people to worry about. And, you just feel constrained, like you don't want to take the risk because you don't want it to go wrong. Nobody ever thinks about, what. One of the things a lady said to me, and I've said this a couple of times on the pod, told this story a couple of times already, is she's the head of innovation for the Army. And she said, when you look at projects, you need to prepare for catastrophic success. And no one ever prepares for catastrophic success. They always prepare for what happens if it goes wrong, but nobody ever prepares for what if it's wildly successful. And so, Derek, your comment where you were talking about using AI for creativity, I totally understand what you mean. Like, and I use it that way a lot as well. But what I think it misses is those total wild card moments where it would never say, if you said, give me a few lines to use in this, interview, and if he asked me about advertisers on the platform, it would never say, tell Disney to fuck off. Like, it wouldn't come out with that, because the way AI works is it's always just a little bit off of the average, right? So it's always taking the most likely thing, and then it says, oh, but we'll be just a little bit random, and we'll just say something slightly different. So you always end up in that, and at almost at the very top of the bell curve, and you never get on the edges. And
that's true. Yeah. Although that's because these current generation of the kind of publicly available, commercial models are aimed at that kind of content. Before, when we were using, training our own models, and you could kind of dial up the randomness, dial up the temperature. So then it might well come up with something that's very unexpected.
Wasn't there that Microsoft bot? Remember right at the outset, was it Tay?
Tay that became racist very quickly, yes. Because they just let it learn from what people were telling it on the internet. So that was pretty crazy. It ended up pretty crazy. You need checks and balances. Yeah, they had to take that down, obviously. Yeah. But then that's because they didn't consider the downsides or how it would be misused. And I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot. And I don't think people realize, and I probably don't realize how much of that stuff gets filtered out. And probably most of the work that OpenAI and all these companies do is actually filtering out all of that stuff. It's moderation. It's content moderation, just like you would do anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it comes out with random content and you have to go, no, you can't say that. So it's interesting to go back to on something that you said as well, which again, I think I have an idea that I think when we reach this AGI point, that it's going to be a federated model. And we're going to have a bunch of very specially narrow AI models that have been trained to do one or two specialist things. But that the controller AI that sits across the top is going to have the AGI, because it's just going to go and it's going to get information from wherever it needs to go. But I wanted to just pull on that thread of what you were saying, because it's those specially trained AIs that are going to be potentially super powerful for businesses, isn't it?
Yeah, but then again, they're still a niche in the sense that they're in that space. I don't know about the AGI stuff. I kind of personally feel that's a little bit sci-fi and a long way off. Whereas we're talking about although we say AI is this kind of massive, big, broad term, covers so many different things.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, a way to fill stuff in Photoshop, or whether it's transcribing audio, or there's so many million different tools and use cases, but they're all very separate. I don't know if that kind of probably went a little bit away from what you were asking there.
That's right.
But
I think
we're in the here and the now. Yeah, we're using lots of small tools.
Yeah.
Putting them together, to kind of achieve whatever individual goals that we have. But I think the AGI stuff is probably a bit of a kind of distraction from that.
Yeah.
I use the analogy, like the way that we work with the whole bunch of generative AI tools now. It's a bit like putting a band together, or trying to create a piece of music, and you put the different instruments in the group together. And sometimes, just because we might bring a harpsichord in, right, which is an unexpected, or a euphonium, or some other way, and that kind of makes it a little bit stranger. Because ultimately, there's two interesting points you've raised, Dave. Is on the one hand, it is this thing about trying to be different, and so you can be different in terms of the creative output of AI by doing sort of different things, trying to hack your way to do things that maybe others aren't thinking. But going back to what you're saying, is that the actual concerns that people have in marketing about where they think, oh, what if it goes wrong, as opposed to what if it goes right, is a kind of as old as humankind, isn't it? And that is still the concern. So whether it's I would have had that same problem if I were presenting a concept for a campaign 20 years ago, long before any of this. The same fear. Oh, what if the classic thing when you go in with 3 ideas to the pitch? There's the one that's really out there, probably the one that answers the brief, and the safe one, right? And people love that because that's how it is. And it's probably no different in terms of what you present with AI. Because as you say, people are concerned if they've got a budget and they're thinking about their reputation, not thinking, fuck it, I've sworn, never mind. They think, we'll just get it out there and see what happens. That's a rare. We have encountered clients who are like that. And we love them, who just like, I don't care about the consequences. I want I don't know if it's the fame or the notoriety or the virality. Right. But, in our experience, that's probably 2% of everybody we ever encounter.
Yeah. That's loosened up a lot with social media. I think some companies have back before X was X and it was Twitter, and kind of in the height, the golden age of Twitter, before everything started to go a bit wrong. There's some amazing social media accounts and stuff that were run. Wendy's in the US was a classic example of that, where they basically just said, do whatever you want. Obviously it was within reason, but a lot of people, Ryanair, EasyJet, a lot of them are quite serious most of the time, but then they also have a lot of fun with their social accounts as well. And I think that's something that's probably new in the grand scheme of things, in the sort of PR type world, right? Like I would think before, maybe the 2010s or something, everybody was a lot more cautious, except in those instances, Norts, where you were saying, they wanted to go out, they want an award-winning campaign, they want to go out and create a buzz, and they want to do that. And I don't know, it feels like it's slightly different, but yet the same at the same time. And
I suppose I also think, again, it steps away from technology and creative technology and AI, but obviously all tools, social media is the same as creative AI tools. This fact that there's this democratization. So obviously social media is full of people who are expressing something about their personality, or they want to be influencers, etc. And the same applies. 90% of that will be crap, 10% will be good. But I suppose the thing is, it's quite difficult for brands to take on personalities very often, because like they say, people don't necessarily want to dialogue with a toilet roll brand, do they?
Exactly.
They just want toilet roll.
No one cares.
If you know what I mean. So you have to have exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are you doing that? I think you do have to be in a certain strata of selling to be able to have a personality that works for the brand you're in.
Yeah.
Like if you're Nike, you can be about like daring and all these whatever the pillars of Nike are, or Adidas, whosoever.
Yeah.
But if you're a bit more utilitarian, I mean, you very rarely see exciting work do you come out of the kind of utilities world, do you?
No.
Because kind of like that's about a price thing, isn't it?
Doesn't mean they couldn't.
No, of course
they probably
not. Of course
could
not.
if they, but it's not the type of person who works in that industry either. Doesn't push the boundaries. I mean, I guess the good example is Red Bull, right? Red Bull never advertises Red Bull. You hardly ever see a can. Like Red Bull gives you wings, and they may have a little picture of a can at the very end, but all their social media, all the everything, you never see them talking about how good of a drink it is, what it does, like what's in it, what the price, like they don't do any of that. It's all aspirational. Like, look at people who drink Red Bull do this really cool stuff. And, it's like, this is the life you have if you drink Red Bull, I guess. And, that kind of thing. And it's, it's amazing and people love it and it works really, really well.
I think what's interesting, though, about AI tools, I mean, we can look at it and we can talk about it, about the creative advantage it can give you by using these tools, and you can do things that are different. But I think what's different, certainly from this year, and certainly at the tail end of this year, with the conversations we've had with the kind of ad agencies or direct with brands or PR companies that we might work with, is that the fact that people are realizing that the actual tools, if you don't start working in a creative realm with AI tools, it's not about you're going to be left behind. You're going to be outmoded and you're going to be outperformed by somebody else, and you're going to be outcosted, if that's even a word, but I know what I mean. Because if you're not using them and someone else is using them, they're going to beat you. And it's, that's the whole point. It's a competitive world, isn't it? It's dog eat dog. And that's different. It's not simply about the judgments being made on how creative your idea, how brave, how emotionally arousing it is. It's actually, if I don't use this, someone's going to create something that's like, I don't know, they can do it 4 times faster for 10 times less. So it becomes a much more commercial thing.
Did we, when we were together, talk about, I know a guy who runs a digital agency who does like TV commercials and sort of like video ads. And he was saying to me a while back, and I hope to get him on the show at some point. We've talked about it, but we've just never got anything in the diary. But anyway, he was saying that, it used to be if somebody came and wanted to do an ad, they might film 5 different versions of an ad, and they might have, 2 models and a couple of changes of clothes, and maybe a couple of different color backgrounds or whatever, and they would they'd do a day, they'd record those 5 versions, they'd produce them, have them ready to go, and then they could target those 5 ads. And he's like, I can create 10,000 ads in hours for the same price, and we can target those ads to any tiny little niche that you want to go in. We can do any skin color, we can do any race, we can do any hair, we can do any style, we can do any color, we can do anything, any combination of the above, for basically actually for probably less money than they would have charged to do a couple of days of filming and have everybody in a room together. And that's exactly proving your point. And I think, for working professionals in industries, I think this is where it's going to make a huge difference. I think about session musicians. I think, they're a huge part of the music industry is being creative. And, it's Adele writing a song because her heart is broken. And I don't think AI will come close to doing that anytime soon. But if I need a jingle for a show, for a podcast, or a little 10-second piece of music that I can put on the beginning of a show, that used to be a human that created that, and then would put it up and would sell it and would get would get a royalty from that. Now, no one gets anything from that because it's all done via AI. And it's those people who used to do that stuff, who used to grind, to use the gamer term, they were grinding out content constantly, these little bits and pieces. But all of that work is going to go away. And you're absolutely right. That's where those sort of economies of scale are going to come in. That's where reducing the cost, making the employees more efficient, and all that sort of thing is going to feed in. But do you think with all that, so all that being said, do you think that that's just going to make the human more important for the tasks that humans do?
Yeah, because they'll be curating the kind of the best quality output. It's a little bit of a tangent, but what you kind of just described with the musicians, it's kind of a little bit like what we've seen with web building and design over the past decade or so. People used to go to, hire agencies or freelancers to build and design small websites, bespoke. But now you just go to Wix or Squarespace, and they're just kind of completely, that market really doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So now everyone who was doing that is now working on a kind of different level or a different style of design and building. So I don't think the human will be disappeared out of that situation, but there will be something else that they can do that the computer still can't do. And that becomes more important because that then gives you an edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's important to bear in mind, all you marketeers and advertising people who are listening, and PR types, and anybody, small business, is that regardless of how you execute your idea, whether it's with 2 models or 10,000 models and 246 languages, what's got to be right at the start is it's got to be, and people do forget this, as mostly evidenced by creativity in marketing advertising, it does have to start with an actual good idea.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
The idea, the AI isn't the idea, or the execution of the idea isn't the idea. The idea is the idea. So make it as good as it can be, and then use all the tools at your disposal, human or machine, to make it a beautiful, profound thing.
And to execute. Yeah. No, that's great advice, actually. And that's, again, I think that's getting back to, it's said much more eloquently than I've said it in the past. But yeah, I think that's where the human still sits at the top. And I think somebody asked me the other day, they said, oh, well, do you think AI is going to take over things like, photography competitions? I'm like, no, what we'll see is we'll see a different competition. So instead we'll still have, photography competition, but it'll be for actual it'll be for real photographers, human photographers, but then we'll have an AI photography contest. And I think that's where that'll be really cool to see the results of that as well. And I don't know if anybody's done one yet. I kind of feel like if no one's done one, that maybe I should do one just for fun and kind of see
I think you should.
See what we could get.
Start with the Tunbridge Wells environs. And then broaden out to Kent and
UK.
beyond.
Just do it for the UK and see what we can get. But
well, wasn't there a couple of years ago? There was there was an AI Eurovision Song Contest.
Was there?
Maybe it started about 4 years ago. Yeah, it's been going for 4 years. Because actually, one of our associates entered last year. Oh, they tried to get the UK. Version. But that's just an interesting thing. Again, it's like there's a human Eurovision Song Contest, which is obviously massive these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
And seems to straddle Australia as well, which is kind of puzzling. But
I don't know how that happened. But
it doesn't matter where the geographical parameters, where the lines are drawn. It's irrelevant. But yeah, so again, it's a logical thing. Get the kind of code. Again, it's not a machine-written song, is it? It's a co-created with humans and machines. The first one, funnily enough, you were saying about tools. We've been making this advent calendar for Christmas. Just putting up different things every day, and we've been using different combinations of tools. And we did initially think we were just going to put up highlights of our year.
Right.
That's the kind of lazy boy version of doing it. But actually, as we started, I think we may have done one highlight of the year. We found ourselves making things that are apropos to Christmas, and we've been randomly mixing strange tools together that you don't. And again, it's kind of been quite fun because it's gone back to the janky. But one of the things the other day, we found this AI tool, Derek will remind me what it was called, where you could basically just type in the type of song you wanted and it would generate the lyrics, the voice, the musicality of it all.
Wow.
So we found ourselves writing songs about all sorts of strange shit.
Do you remember what that was called?
It's Suno.ai.
Cool.
And it gives you
it's a Discord, isn't it? It's a Discord favourite.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
My favourite, yeah.
And you just type in, I want a pop song about the Christmas market in Brighton.
Okay.
It'll do that for you.
Cool. I'll put it in the show
So
notes
you
for
could-
everybody if they want to go play with it. So
You could be writing a Christmas in Tunbridge Wells song, but I was amazed because we messed around with one. Derek did one, which was one of Derek's obsessions is K-pop, right? It's like a K-pop Christmas London. So we made a bunch of images around it. But I'm doing a talk next month in Bournemouth, and it's at the university. I found myself writing a song about how joyous it is to be at Bournemouth University, and this song came out, and it was like, oh, that's pretty catchy.
Little earworm, yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yes, and you think, well, okay, and we're only using it as sort of a fun viral snippet, but for a piece of content.
Yeah, it's not going to compete with a
No.
real song created by a real producer, but
No.
yeah, as
You might steal a line of melody, though, Derek.
It might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steal it.
Did you see the news that came out? Well, at least I only saw it yesterday or maybe the day before, but basically saying that the UK Supreme Court had said that you can't copyright anything that's created by AI, which just matches what they've said in the US as well. So if anything's got any AI in it, then you can't copyright that. So that's also going to be really interesting because it's going to mean that anything that's created with AI is totally free use for anyone. So if you do make that, if anybody makes those fun songs or anything like that, just anybody can pick it up and use it, and you don't really have to worry about that. And that's going to be an interesting wrinkle, I think, as well.
yeah, very kind of open source content environment. But when you say created with AI, you can't copyright it. Is that completely created, or if there's human input, does that mean that it is protected?
I think if it's got any AI in it, that it's not copyrightable. I think. I haven't read it. I literally only saw. I saw the news. I think yesterday or day before, and I just shared the article on LinkedIn, but I haven't had a chance to actually go read the actual document. I know in the US the way it works. This came off of the case with there was a lady who wrote a graphic novel, and she used AI and she used Midjourney to create the imagery for it, and then she submitted it because in the US you have to apply for copyright. You don't get it by default like you do here, but in the US she applied, and they denied it because they said you used AI to create this work. She then took them to court and said, well, we should be able to copyright the story and the words, just not the art. And so they basically stepped back and said, okay, you can copyright part of it, but not all of it. So, but I don't know how the UK one is. I don't know how the UK one is written. So
I suppose it has to be a bit like that, doesn't it? Because these things are such, they're black boxes in terms of they don't want to tell you what it's trained on because they don't want to admit that it's trained on content that they don't have the rights to do that.
Yeah.
So, and also then what comes out may well infringe on someone else's work, even if you don't know.
I think the tricky part of that is going to be if you get someone like Elon Musk, who, just to be difficult, is gonna, because his whole idea is that it should be open to everybody, right? So if you get somebody with like Elon Musk who has tons of money and says, I'm not going to charge anybody to use this, it's free, it's a free use tool, you can use it for research and whatever, then he technically would be within fair use because it's for education, and as long as you're not using it to make money, then that would fall under free use. So he could actually use everything under free use if he gave it away. It's only when they start to charge for it, I think.
That's his grok.ai thing, is it?
I'm not a lawyer, so don't take any of my thing as actual legal advice, but that's my understanding anyway. So, if somebody comes along and does something like that, then then the law gets really, really gray. I don't know, it just feels like eventually there's going to be so much AI content that everybody will be able to reuse for everything else, and it might have some it's all going to have human parts in it as well, and it's all just going to get really, really messy. Really messy.
I mean, we're kind of seeing that now, aren't we? Like, there's whole websites just AI generated just to game Google, get to the top of the results. And if you read it, they're just awful.
Yeah.
But they're not made, they don't care about the human reading it. They just care about gaming the search engine, and that's going to happen with...
There's always someone coming along ruining it for everybody.
Always.
There's always.
That's people. That's just people. Here's my favorite one. What's your opinion on all these, on all the faceless videos on YouTube?
Faceless?
Yeah, so they're I don't know, maybe you haven't seen them, but they're auto created. So it's pretty much an AI script that's been fed into a tool that then does an AI voice on top of it, and then it creates a video off the back of it. And they're like training videos on here's how to put this, here's how to enter this, here's how to do a chart in Excel. And it's none of it's real. It's so obvious. It's like terrible. And
they use like the TikTok voice, don't they?
And
or just the
flooded YouTube. And because I'm now trying to, I was saying to you guys earlier, I've set up a home studio and I've got a better camera. So, hopefully people that are watching this will go, wow, okay, the quality is a lot better than the camera that I used to have. But I'm trying to learn how to do video editing and how to improve my skills around all that stuff. So I'm constantly looking for stuff new, training how to do this, how to do that, how do you make this like that. And all these videos have just started coming up and coming up and coming up. And I'm just like, this is the net effect of AI, because you go on Twitter and you see all these people going, hey, you can make $5,000 a month if you just create 500,000 YouTube videos, and you're just like, oh my God, please stop. So, since you sort of didn't even know what I was talking about, I'm assuming that you don't come across them that often.
I know what you mean. I just didn't know it with as that term. And they are. They're just flooding.
We thought you meant creating
aren't
faceless video, people with no faces. I was thinking,
that's what I was.
What terrifying trend is that?
Like a Doctor Who alien. That's what I was imagining.
Oh yeah, you get a lot of that on Instagram as well.
Yeah,
get that those voices come up. But again, I think this refers back to what we've talked about earlier. It's never wrong. The Sturgeon's law, the Sturgeon's rule, as they call it, of 90% of everything crap. So it just means now that 90%, it's probably just pushing up the 90% up, maybe to 92, 93%, because again, there's no thought behind it, and people just think, AI voice, AI writing, AI video, I've made some content. Yeah. No, what you've done is you've made a digital pig with
spam.
lipstick.
You've made spam.
Exactly.
Yeah, video spam.
And at some point, the platforms will identify that and demonetize it, so it will be less. But it's an arms race, isn't it? It's always.
Well, Spotify did that with all those sort of ASMR accounts and stuff like that, where people were just creating, 2-hour-long bits of noise that wasn't actually a song. It was just, random sounds that people could pick up and listen to,
or they could listen overnight and then they would get royalties
and they would get royalties on it. And so Spotify stepped in and done something. I don't disagree with that, and I think Nort's probably as an ex-musician, you probably agree with that as well. I think somebody who goes to makes the effort to create something that's more than just a sound that someone's meant to listen to overnight, I think that deserves more of a payment than the other. I think, and again, I think you're getting the same stuff with YouTube. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I don't know if you guys have come across this either, but he said something that's becoming popular on YouTube is like, what happens is people working from home just turn on the TV in the background, and because they have smart TVs, they can see YouTube. And so what they do is, like, you'll get people sitting at home and they'll put something on, like someone playing golf. But what they do is, it's like someone with a GoPro camera who just records themselves playing a round of golf. And then they put the whole video on YouTube. And then people who like golf will just put it on in the background. So it's almost like they're there with their mates, sort of playing a round of golf. And it
very niche TV channels,
but it's
for like an audience of one.
Yeah. But it's not, though, because loads of people are watching them because they just want something on in the background right while they're working. And
imagine that you're playing at St Andrew. Someone's playing the course at St Andrew. It's almost like it's like cheap VR, isn't it?
Well, it's like
or expensive VR.
The channel, was it like lo-fi hip hop beats to study and relax to? That kind of
love it.
It's hugely popular because for that same reason, people put that in the background.
But that's music. That's like putting on a CD. And for me, I don't know. For me, that feels different than if I've got a TV on and I'm watching someone play a round of golf with no commentary. Well, it's literally just, this guy walking around playing a round of golf with his mates or by himself. And I'm just like, wow. So anybody can put up any sort of content and people are watching it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, right. That sort of gets me, we're kind of 52 minutes in now, or 50 minutes in. So I don't
there's a lot of deadwood there, David. A lot of deadwood.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good stuff.
3 days before Christmas. I'm surprised. It made me think of something you said a minute ago. Oh, it was Derek talking about something, but it made me think of, what we should have done is we should have got some mulled wine or some Irish coffees or something to start with. There's a whole
at 9:30 in the morning.
9:30 in the morning. There's a whole podcast that's it's drunk women solving crime. And they basically, there's like three ladies and they get together and they just drink loads of women and they talk, so it's like this true crime kind of podcast, and they have guests on and they just get absolutely hammered, and it's hilarious, and it's one of like the top rated shows. So I keep thinking maybe I'm missing a trick. Maybe I need to instead of coffee or tea in the afternoon, maybe I need to have like a proper drink or something. And
that could be one of your channels, couldn't it? The Drunk AI channel.
Yeah. Yeah,
profound discussions about
drunk men
machine
solving
learning.
AI.
Yeah, fueled by vodka.
Something. Right. So, crystal ball time. Like what we've mentioned sumo. We mentioned Suno.
I think it's actually Suno. Yeah.
What other cool tools are out there that you think people may not have seen, or what are you like? If you had to sit and experiment with something over the holidays, what's like your most exciting thing that you think, okay, I'm going to take a few days just to figure this tool out? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
Well, for me personally, because it has so much flexibility and so much potential to apply one's human cinematic desire to be Alfred Hitchcock, or Steven Spielberg. I love using the kind of runway ML tools, specifically Gen 1 and Gen 2, because they've now had these kind of upgrades throughout the year where the animation you're creating, you can do so much more in terms of bringing it to life. And it's not a case of like, okay, I'll paint that little corner of it over there and maybe that'll make a cloud move, and I'll just pan the camera there to try and replicate this kind of cinematic kind of classic camera move. But the fact of the matter is, there's no precision about it. So you've got to use the tools over and over to get used to the shot that you have, to work out what you're trying to create. So again, it's like, it's a really great example of, it's a tool and you could just use it to bang out a shot. But actually, if you think about, if I'm going to do a camera spin, I'm going to do a tilt, I'm going to do a zoom, I'm going to do a pan, I'm going to create a little bit of motion here and there's going to be a little bit of motion there. I don't know, I'm drawing that on. I suppose people can see me drawing things on the screen. So you can basically bring the thing to life. And again, if you're using like this sort of workflow of tools, like you've created something that's hyper realistic imagery on Midjourney or other visual tools are available, visual AI models, that would be the one, because there's no way that you're going to be good at it from like a couple of hours, right? You've got to keep using it, and then it becomes a real art. And this is why I think people will create work for themselves where they think, oh, I've lost it. If you're good at storytelling, if you're good at crafting photography in a way that can sort of resonate emotionally, if you're good at video camera work and framing and understanding how that shot leads to that shot leads to that shot, which builds a dramatic tension, Runway's the kiddie, because you can just do that whole thing. I'm sure others have. You can do all of that in that realm, and that is, the Christmas holiday. You'd need a year of it, and it's just brilliant and beautiful because you could just do so much with it.
Cool.
And they're innovating so quickly as well. And not just them, but everyone. Like a year ago, ChatGPT had only just been released, and these visual tools were not as powerful as they are now.
And I know, it's changing every day. There is a website called There's an AI for That, which I would highly...
Yeah, we love that. We tell everyone to look at that. That's brilliant, yeah.
And again, I'll put a whole list of resources of all that stuff in the show notes for people if you just want to be lazy and go click on it. So what about you, Derek? What sort of cool thing are you looking to play with, or are you excited about?
Yeah, so I think because I crave novelty, it's probably not like one specific thing. Like, I mean, the thing I've used most over the last year is probably Midjourney.
Yeah.
I use that quite a lot, just for kind of fun, personal creativity, or for like creating, like, I don't know, blog post headers and things like that. But what I'm really interested in is seeing all these new tools released. So, I mean, there's an open source platform called Hugging
Yep.
Face, which is, they describe themselves as like the GitHub of AI. And everything is there, like every model or tool, and they have lots of interactive spaces. So people put up, their kind of cutting edge things. And so it's very fun to go and play around with like video creators or audio creators, or there's one that was released the other week called was it Animate Anything? So they have video an AI trained on like TikTok dances or other movement that you can then just upload a photo and it applies that movement, so you've got a moving photo. But the really interesting thing for me is that all of these things have APIs, and so you're able to connect them together in a chain. So your idea doesn't have to be just that one thing anymore. You can like write a few lines in ChatGPT, automatically put that into Eleven Labs and get that spoken as an MP3 in any voice, automatically put that into like HeyGen and bring that to life as a talking head. And then there's no limit to the kind of creativity that you can do then. So that's what excites me.
And then you can publish it automatically to
together in different
YouTube
ways.
and annoy
exactly
everybody.
And fill up YouTube with spam.
But that's what people are doing.
Except if you've applied a little bit of creativity to your workflow, what it's trying to do. Yeah, I mean, like those Hugging Face things, they're fantastic for creating nightmare fuel, aren't they? But we like that because it's fun, it's entertaining.
That's going back to the strange world of
we love that because
AI.
it creates laughter, and laughter's an emotion. So therefore, to me, that's actually putting something in the world that is. If you make people laugh,
and it's that whole kind of meme thing. Like somebody generated there's a tool released earlier in the year called Model Scope text to video. You type anything in and it made a video, and this was very rough and early. And someone did one of the most famous ones, Will Smith eating spaghetti. And it was just really horrific to look at, It looked a bit like him, but it was really, strange. But there's a whole kind of subculture it's a whole pop culture of these things being created. You go onto like Reddit AI video, and it's just, the Pope eating ice cream, Deadpool eating pizza.
Right.
Everybody's just riffing on these same things using these lo-fi tools. So it's just another way of expressing yourself creatively.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
And I think, David, the thing about what we talked about earlier, the YouTube thing about these videos that are uploaded with the voice, the pictures and script, is that the reason it's awful is because it's just bland. It's boring. Yeah. That's the killer, isn't it? It's just boring. Humans can do boring stuff in the world of advertising and marketing, but you can also get machines to do boring. And the point of the matter is, it goes back to writing. Don't do boring. Yeah. That's the story.
It's like extra boring.
But that's hard.
It's like extra boring.
Yeah, it's extra boring. It's ambient boring. It's like boring on a new level of boring. But so boring, you just don't want to. But it just makes you angry, which I suppose is an emotion.
But you know what'll happen though is that you'll have someone will create one that's so boring that people will love it, and it will become like an instant internet hit. And everybody will watch it and listen to it and go and look at it because it's so boring. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, there is that conference, isn't there, that happens in, it was in London, the Boring Conference, where people come along and they do their talks
boring
about
stuff.
Like paperclip kind of taxonomy and stuff like that, and it always sells out.
Sure
it always sells massively. I've always wanted to go. Ideally, just to do a really dull talk about something incredible. The 1948 Sussex batting averages.
I love it. Awesome. One of the new questions. So again, we're an hour in now, so I should probably think about winding up. But the new question that I'm asking, sort of in 2024, is, when you deal with AI, are you polite? Do you say please, and do you say
sometimes? When I talk to Alexa, because I've got one of those things that turn the lights on and off. That's actually a really interesting question. I think it's what I found is, yes, I do be polite, but if it gets it wrong the first time, then it makes you quite snappy. Like if it starts playing something you didn't want, it's like, no, stop immediately. And when it comes to Midjourney or ChatGPT, no, I would just make this. Right. Although, we should be polite to robots, but then we should also be polite to humans. That's what I think.
What about you, Norts?
That's interesting. Yeah, right. Midjourney. A Midjourney prompt or any prompt, I tend to be very functional in terms of like, well, not because you're trying to create, but it's you don't feel like you're talking to a person. But my Chat GPT experience is I'm overly polite with Chat GPT. Well, that's not quite what I was looking for, but it's always like
you're amazing, please make it better.
That's what I tried to do. I tried to ingratiate myself with the machine. You're much better than that. You're just having a I find weirdly Chat GPT, my Chat GPT conversations are definitely super polite compared with any other prompting I do anywhere else.
Is that just because it talks back?
Why is that?
Talks.
Possibly. Possibly. But same thing goes. Alexa. Alexa's it's just like having a partner, isn't it, in the house?
To get annoyed with.
Like, and that's not right, is it? Like you say, that we can't all be perfect. It's like all interactions. Let's put more empathy and more. It's Christmas, so we can talk about love and empathy and charitable kind of thing. We should do it with humans and machines.
We should do.
We? Embrace everyone.
But it should come from us, right? So we should be that type of person. So it shouldn't matter, in my mind anyway, it shouldn't matter who we or what we interact with. We should always be that way because that's who we want to be. Not because we think that they deserve respect. It's because that's who we want to be.
This is the true
always,
message
always
of
say
Christmas.
thank you, even if it's to a credit card
or whatever.
Online,
It's and the reason I asked this question is because I saw a post and it was the way the lady expressed it was I thought was very interesting, which is she said whenever she uses like a Copilot type tool on GitHub or something like that, she's like, and she asks it for assistance with a piece of code or something, and then it helps her. She feels gratitude, but she doesn't know what to do with it. Because if that was a person, you would be like, oh, I'm really grateful. Thank you for helping me with, and you get this feeling of gratitude that you then want to express to someone. And she's like, I get this feeling of gratitude, but I think that the computer doesn't really care. And she's like, I don't know what to do with it. And I thought that was a really, really interesting way of saying it. And, and so it's now started me on this discussion. So this is going to be my big sort of, thing that I like to talk to everybody about this year. Last year it was, is AI male or female? And what would you name it? And that.
So every person who creates an AI tool should program in a response that when someone says thank you, they should say something along the lines of, oh, you're welcome. And then that takes care of that. Yeah. That nice. And
if you don't say thank you, it gives you a
moment.
less accurate answer next time.
This is the first moment. I'm finally getting the Christmas vibe now. You've put that tingle in me, David,
awesome.
With all this love and goodwill.
Awesome. Okay. Any plugs for anything you guys are working on at the minute, or anything you want people to go and check out, or can we do anything for you to help, or you just want to go and drink some mulled wine?
We'll go and have a look at our AI Advent calendar. That's on our website.
And what's the URL for people?
So that's thepeeps.xyz, and then there's a link to it at the top of the page. That's full of fun AI weirdness.
Okay. Norts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that we shouldn't exploit the airtime to do hardcore selling. That would seem to go against. I mean, we want to put food on everyone's tables, mostly ours or anybody's table. But go and check our website if you ever feel you need to get some assistance or some help. And also, we're very, very relaxed about people just getting in touch and asking us questions about how to do stuff. That's where we start. We run an event 4 times a year, which is a free event in Bristol, which people come along to. And it's always been very much about creating a community of like-minded people, or people who are machine curious, of want a better term. So we kind of view ourselves as a bit punky and a bit evangelist. But start at the website.
When's your next event?
And see where it takes you. Our next event is on the 24th of January.
So there you go. I got it out of you eventually.
That is cool, but it's all gone. It's been signed up. They're already there. We're doing something in Web3 on the 16th, but that's for a different podcast, isn't it?
Fine.
On a different day. But
brilliant.
It's start at the website and see where it takes you.
All right.
Maybe.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I know, like I said, it's a couple of days before Christmas and we're all very busy, so I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this morning. Let me know if there's anything I can ever do to help you. And other than that, have a great holiday.
You're a gentleman and a scholar, sir.
It's been a fun conversation. Thank you.
The Creatives with AI podcast, the spiritual home of creatives curious about AI and its role in their future.